Okay, good morning, everybody. Next up, we have a very exciting session from Morgan and Brendan. I hear from a reliable source that you have a very good story to tell.
Oh, too funny.
Go up there.
Yep.
Okay, well, welcome to our session, which is very much a story of things that students have thrown our way, ways that we've tried to address that, and we hope that also we will learn a little bit from you today. So we're going to start off with some introductions. Brendan, go ahead and tell us about you and your environment.
Okay, my name is Brendan Haney. I work at Jacksonville Country Day School. We are a private, nonprofit, non-affiliated school, so we are completely independent. We have 405 at the moment students. We have about 75 faculty employees and 50 administrative staff. Of that environment, we have 50 Macs, and you can do the math, roughly 500 and change mobile devices throughout the environment on top of Apple TVs, et cetera.
So my environment is a little different, and what I hope you can take away from this is whether you are at an independent school or in Richardson, we have 36,000 students. We are pre-K through 12. We have about 30,000 mobile devices and 4,000 or 5,000 Macs. We also have students 7 through 12 on Chromebooks. We also have a mixed environment for staff on MacBooks and Windows. So we have a lot going on. And in spite of those things being very different, we have very similar challenges. And kids are kids everywhere, and they try all kinds of things. So our session title, Students Tried It First. So this is going to be a really open discussion about some of the challenges that we face in an EDU technology environment, how we address things, how we are constantly having to handle things that pop up and surprise us, and deal with them in creative ways, all while keeping students focused on learning and safe, and sometimes being able to laugh about it later. But lots of creative problem solving involved. We are going to get to a part of this where we have some questions for you, and we want to hear about some of the things that you've experienced and maybe how you've addressed those. So when we get to that part, if you would wait for a mic to get to you before you talk, that would really help us facilitate this really smoothly so everyone can hear.
Okay, if you're not in education, don't run out of the room, because a student probably taught the adult that did this terrible thing first, and that's kind of the premise here. One of the first things that ever happened to me at the school that I wasn't expecting is a little bit more common than I realized when I told the story, but it was still impressive. So we all block messages. They can't send text messages back and forth. Well, we had a group of fourth graders that decided that they should still communicate outside of that parameter, so they decided to share a Google Doc with the entire grade level, minus one student. That's where they messed up. Minus one student, that one student got upset, we found out, we started to unravel. So I thought that was a pretty creative way to get around it and what they were doing. So what ultimately happened for us is in Google Workspace, we had to change our sharing privileges. So we have our students on a subdomain, so it's students.jcds.com. They cannot share amongst themselves, they can only share to the primary domain, is how we kind of corrected that problem moving forward. Not gonna say that they didn't figure out another way down the road, but as of right now, we've slowed them down.
That is the best way to phrase that.
And the second example that we're going to talk about, and I'll show you, this one was really creative. So accessibility features that come on your iPad, mind-blowing. They changed the world of what people can do. Well, we had to ban Bluetooth headphones. Now, a lot of Bluetooth signals in a room makes things unstable. Solid reason not to have them. Here's reason number 2. We had a student was getting into trouble a lot. Parents had a parent-teacher conference. He put his iPad in accessibility mode with the microphone on and left it in his desk. His parents went in, had a conference. He had AirPods in the hallway, heard the entire conference. Mom and dad come out. Johnny, I can't believe you. Well, she didn't tell you the whole story. That was the way that went. So we since have now turned off the Bluetooth pairing feature in Jamf. So if they do have a Bluetooth device, we have to manually do it for them to, yet again, slow them down. That was, short of, you've got the kids that have to wear the earpieces because they want to be cool. This was a whole nother experience for me because we had to have a conversation of what thought process did you use to get here? So no Bluetooth headphones, anything Bluetooth at this point we've kind of put a cap on, but that was I don't know how to describe it other than a shocking moment.
That reminds me of one of my children, my oldest, when he was in kindergarten, he went to the school across the street from my office. And sometimes on Fridays, I'd walk over and get him and bring him back over. And one day I'm sitting there talking to my boss and our CTO, and there's like movement out of the corner of my eye, and I look over, and my son has just an arm sticking out with an iPad and voice notes and voice memos. And he's recording our conversation, which was not interesting to a kindergartner, but still, I was like, this is terrifying. So we're always checking, like, is Hudson around? Is there an arm sticking out? Is there an iPad loose? Okay, so Apple Classroom. This is where we see so much creativity because they will do anything to get out of the teachers seeing their screens, which is also like such a red flag. If you don't want the teacher to see your screen, we really know that we need to be seeing your screen. So we had students trying a variety of things, even up to like erasing their own iPads, which is like, well, now you can't do anything. So we can't see your screen, but you can't do anything either. Turning it all the way off. But a huge thing, of course, was turning off Bluetooth. We do that a different way now, so less relevant to our environment now. But at the time, that was a huge problem, and they kept turning off Bluetooth, and they're going offline or turning off the Wi-Fi. So now we have that grayed out. It's on all the time, and they cannot touch. So we don't use Bluetooth headphones. We have Logitech crayons instead of Apple pencils because we're not touching Bluetooth, and nothing is connecting.
And I get kind of like the first thing you're going to say is, well, now what headphones do I use? And that whole conversation, which I'll be happy to have with you down the road and another time about what cases we use and how we kind of get around it. But it's kind of the only way to slow some of this down.
Yes. And also, I think we come at it from what's the greatest need and like the largest audience that we're trying to support and address. And so it's not perfect. We certainly have times where somebody reaches out and they have, whether it's assistive technology or an accommodation, and then we can handle that one-on-one. But for the bulk of students, that's just, we're not touching that. We have to think about if we have 36,000 students and 20,000 of them are an iPad, that's who we're designing for. This was another fun one. So as I'm sure many of you experienced, lots of Zoom, WebEx, other kinds of tools like that during 2020, but afterwards too, there were some things that didn't go back, and we still have students who are using these tools to whether they're advancing in one content area, so they are actually in an online class while they're sitting in the building because they're taking a junior high math class or something like that. They're in a 0 hour, all these things. So we can't remove these. But our students got really creative. Going back to your messaging, they used their district Google accounts. They created accounts on Zoom, and they were just chatting away in the Zoom chat, starting their own little back channels, a workforce ready skill, honestly. But so we had to deal with the creative challenge of we need this app. We can't take Zoom away, and now we use WebEx, but we can't take these away, but we've got to make this safe for our students, because not only is it a distraction and off task that they're chatting, but also like this is not safe. We can't control who else they're talking to either. And so we were able to use an app configuration to remove that from students. So our students have a version of these apps that they cannot log into. All they can do is join a meeting. They cannot start their own meetings, and they cannot chat. And then of course, staff still have that full functionality. So we really appreciate being able to customize that to address that and keep our kids, again, focused and safe.
So this is the part where we need you, okay? So what we'd like to do at this point is kind of open up the floor for some of the clever things your kids have done If you solved it, what did you do? If you didn't solve it, that's okay. Maybe somebody in the room was like, hey, try this. As Morgan said, just if you could wait on the mic to get there so we can all hear the question, that would be great, or the statement. So a volunteer to go first would be wonderful. I have door prizes if you participate.
Yes.
Some of you have seen these. You're welcome to come up and get one. I have one that says, we judge and we don't listen. Some of you might, there's an overthinker pen, so please feel free.
I'll be first up. So I'm actually a teacher in Japan, and we're using Jamf on-device content filtering. And one of the smart ways he got around it was he has an Android phone, sets up a Wi-Fi hotspot, but on his Android phone he also sets up an HTTP proxy that uses the same IP address as our school's router, so then he's able to do whatever he wants on his iPad. I mean, I didn't feel like that was something that needed to be closed down. I don't think many students are going to be doing that. But I was like, yeah, it's a pretty creative way of doing that.
I mean, I think you should hire him.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, on that, well, we in our configuration profiles and in our blueprints, we regulate our students to a specific SSID. Kind of would help, but when you have someone at that level, I put concrete in their shoes is all I got.
I mean, we got a little help because I'm in Texas and our state has banned phones, so no more hotspots from phones, but certainly has been something that popped up in the past.
Do you guys want to pick? There's lots of hands.
No, right here in the middle.
Aloha. We're from the beautiful state of Hawaii. Here are my people beside me. Aloha. The student was so proud to share with his teacher. I'm a tech coordinator, and our ELL teacher, approached me and said, Tommy was so proud to show me that he was able to screenshot and then paste in Google search, and then it gave him an answer. Well, he was screenshotting his iReady test, and then he inserted it. She goes, what should I do? So we use GoGuardian, and so I set up a scene where all the chat AIs, every AI you can think of is blocked. And it worked, so they're no longer able to do that.
Yeah, that is unfortunate with Google with the image search, because I think we all run into image search is not necessarily content filtered the same way that actual word content, lack of a better way to put it. So that one's creative. The only other thing that I've thought of in those moments is to release a time frame and a single app use to where they can't get out.
Yeah. Yes, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because a lot of the conversations we have with teachers when these things happen are like, what tools do you have to kind of proactively head this off? So like our Chromebook teachers use GoGuardian, and then our iPad teachers use Jamf Teacher. And so like, hey, if we limit what resources kids have access to in this time, whitelisting the sites they need, allowing only the apps they need, we can head some of it off. They still are very creative in the ways that they get around things. But like, how can we proactively set ourselves up for success to at least minimize the things that we're trying to address and handle? Because also we know that when those things happen, then teachers don't want to use technology, or they're like, see, this is why I can never do it because this one crazy thing happened.
Yeah, they have long memories when it comes to that kind of stuff.
They do.
Sure.
They're like, 3 years ago, this happened, and now I can never use it again. Next.
Any other in the front?
I feel like we had
Go one in the front.
one here.
Well, hello from Norway. We work with a lot of customers, a lot of school districts, and deploy Jamf School. And we had this one incident where we had an exam setting, and with the curated access to the internet, because the government says they define what's supposed to be available on an exam date. And then some student had gathered up and created or modified just an existing Wikipedia page and used the Wikipedia page to communicate during the exam.
Turn off the internet.
Yep.
No, I mean, there again, I mean, the only thing that I could remotely say is if, like, in the testing app world is to, it's a pain because you have to put the time constraint on it, because you don't want it to be too long, too short. But that single app mode, if you can use that and release it for those days, that's the only thing in my head at the moment that I can even come up with, because that, yet again, like, it's funny now because he talks about Wikipedia, and when I was in school, we couldn't use Wikipedia as a source, and now it's the trusted source, which is, times have changed, so.
I just blocked it for elementary. It's not a reliable source. For elementary students to discern what a reliable source is, that's a developing skill.
All right, yeah.
We had a student in our, in our 5th grade class who, early on in our implementation of Google Workspace, he figured out how to change his name to I Hate Robert Douglas, which was a classmate, and so that caused us to review our Google Workspace settings.
That's,
Why don't they apply these powers for good?
right, yeah, I mean, that's 100% that situation.
You ask
I mean,
them to, create something, and they're like, this is so hard, I can't do it.
in the same vein, we have staff that do that occasionally, not quite I hate someone, but
Yeah.
they'll change their title, and I'm like, their director comes to me, and they're like, they changed their title, why? I'm like, well, sorry, I don't monitor subject lines, and I don't monitor your signature lines, but apparently it's something we're gonna have to lock up.
Hello, I'm from Colorado, so an hour north of here in Greeley. Work at a school district, and students get around content filtering in a variety of ways for us. We use Cisco Umbrella for most of our content filtering, along with the Jamf built-in content filtering. One of the things that I've seen that is like a persistent thing is that proxies to get to unwanted sites is always an issue. But another thing is the students will turn off their device, turn it back on, before the Cisco Umbrella settings can be applied, or just be applied at all. They will spam a site that they want to go to in Safari for like 10 to 15 seconds. And then if it goes through, it'll stay on and they can just bookmark it. And they'll have access to that. And that proxy will stay open so they have access to anything that they want to do unsupervised.
Such perseverance.
And like on and off, and they'll do it like 10 times in a row. So
Yeah.
that also leads to like our devices, their health.
Yeah.
Turn it on and off,
Yeah.
on and off, and so.
Are they
that's
using
something
a
that we-
particular? Are they using a particular app as the proxy? Because we had an app at one time that we did not realize served also as a proxy, and we had to delete it for such reasons. So I didn't know if it was. Is there an app or something they're using to do it, or just?
Just through like a proxy, and they just
Okay.
look it up, and they'll send it around to each other through email, because kids like to communicate through email. And so click on this link.
I mean, I feel
They
like
just
I
go
heard
through.
of junior high kids at one point like selling proxy sites to each other. Like this is a business that they're running in the junior highs.
Yeah, we're not there.
Not
We
anymore.
got kindergarten and 5th graders. We're not there yet.
I just have a few more people. That's
Well, we sell fidget spinners. We don't sell proxies. So, we had one selling fidget spinners, and everybody was upset because he was making them $20 for a $5 item. I'm like, entrepreneur right there.
that's how it works.
My name's Dan Taylor. I'm from Lakeville, Minnesota. I work for the Lakeville School District. We had a student that went through and actually, brain fart. They went through, and even though we have a deferral in place, they were really antsy to get the new iPad OS 26. So they brought their iPad home. We restrict USB settings, but obviously they can put in their passcode and allow it. And they updated their iPad to iPad OS 26. We had reporting already set up in Jamf to make sure we saw devices that didn't get the update since we had the deferral in place, but the student had done it manually. So they brought their iPad to their teacher and said, it looks different, what's wrong with it? And tried to kind of play it like that. Don't have a solution for it, we just had to give them a different iPad since
Yeah.
there's no IPSW file for it.
I mean, I'm just like, what's the end game there? Just curiosity, just disruption. I guess that's it. Disruption is usually the end game.
That's the answer, and they want to show you they think they're smarter than you.
Yeah.
I've got one that does the same thing, and I don't have the answer, other than Benji, don't do that. That's what happens there.
I'm Brian from Horace Mann School, Bronx, New York. We recently rolled out Jamf School one-to-one iPads for middle schoolers, and in the night, they're locked down to a single app mode. It's time filtered, and some kids found out a way. The app was locked down to an app that we have, and somehow within the app they find a way through YouTube, I guess, just the icon itself, and we have it locked down, but somehow they got into watching YouTube, and they share amongst themselves, and they actually find it an accomplishment. They like to go to their teachers and say, hey, look what we figured out. So it helps us too.
That's my favorite, when they brag.
Yeah,
They're
it's
like,
bragging.
look at what I did. And you're like, why? Thank you. Come over here, let's have a chat. Yeah, the single app mode, like we lock ours down at night as well for similar reasons. The one benefit we have is we completely block YouTube for our students. So
Yeah, but they keep finding it anyway.
I didn't say they don't. And when they go home, there's still holes. I mean, it's like Swiss cheese. We're trying to catch it, but we don't catch all of it.
Over here, in that same vein, we blocked YouTube district-wide this year, and what we're running into is students are embedding links to YouTube videos in Google
slides?
slide decks.
We had that yesterday.
Yes.
I got an email yesterday.
And we've got teachers that are like, how do we stop this? But I still need to embed my videos in
Yes.
slides.
Right.
And we're just like, we got nothing.
Yeah.
But yeah, they always find a way.
I
Yeah,
think
so we were blocking YouTube, we kind of, for a long time, trying to find the perfect balance for that. And finally, last spring, we're like, that's it. Like, it's done. So now they have to fill out a form and request for it to be unblocked, which, they really like when they have to request and wait for approval for something. So the teachers.
But
But yes, yesterday, something obviously had changed, and I guess they just try every day and see what happens. But all of a sudden yesterday, they were able to embed them in slides again, and it's probably a very exciting day at school.
Yeah, so we blocked YouTube, okay? But now Google owns YouTube or vice versa. I don't know who's mom and who's dad, but when you sign into a Google account for the first time, where does it verify? YouTube. So
It's really hard to
we
block it without
had
blocking everything else.
a mess of a time of getting our new accounts verified because YouTube was blocked. So ultimately what happened was we blocked YouTube on the device but not the network, and that's what we were able to kind of make happen. So that's where you get creative with your VLANs and different things, but there again, it's really granular. You got to make sure you hit it just right, but that's kind of the area I would look in those situations. But throwing it in Google Slides and sending it, there is an app that I know not really an app, but a website I've had my teachers use for specific URLs that they can share just that URL, which then leads to Morgan's point of, I need to know what it is so I can release it.
It's also, I'm on the instructional side and I have a team of specialists, and so then we're also trying to come behind that and talk to the teachers like, well, okay, you have 28 kids sitting in your room live. Do they need to watch a YouTube video instructionally on their own device with their headphones? You could just show it right here and you could talk about it. We're not in an asynchronous environment here. We're not, in a hybrid learning like we were in 2020, 2021. So do kids need to see that video, or can you just show it? So, we got to follow with that instructional piece too.
Or can they do it?
What? Oh yeah, or you could just say what
You could just
you're
do
gonna
it,
say in
like
that
show
video.
them the
Yes.
experiment,
Yes. I mean, I get it sometimes.
I was never a teacher, I admit that, and a lot of my teachers remind me. But thankfully Morgan was a teacher, and I think she has a little bit more leverage to stand on occasionally.
It was. Okay, so some of these challenges and solutions bring up a great question. Brian, actually, this makes me think of you because this was essentially our presentation in 2022, my first JNUC. How do you balance restrictions with usability? So we want to keep kids safe, and we want to make sure that they're not accessing these things that they shouldn't have access to during the day, but we also want to make it able to be really functional and fully leverage all the capabilities that we have in our devices. So how do you balance that? And then how can you stay ahead of this student ingenuity without being overly restrictive?
So may not be the right philosophy, but my philosophy has always been, Mom always said you had to hug somebody to know how big of a hole to dig sometimes. So that being the case, some of these things you kind of have to just wrap your arms around and figure it out to see how big the problem is, right? Is it a problem with 5 kids? Is it across the district? Is it across the school? For us, and you can tell when a kid uses AI to write a paper, but you've got to calm some people down a little bit. When they use 4-syllable words and they're in 3rd grade, I don't think they wrote it. Now, my argument, if the 3rd grade person knows how to use AI and tell it to write it as a 3rd grader, and with these topic contents, on some level, they kind of did the work, okay? But this all goes back to, I don't want to make it a word processing machine. I mean, why not buy typewriters and throw them out in the room, right? These things do incredible, incredible things. They can make videos, they can do anything they want, but the more we lock it down, the more confined that box gets, and I hate putting them in the box.
Yeah, we recently came across something we didn't expect where, sometimes you restrict something and then it does something that you didn't expect it to do. So we have found in the past that students get around some of our blocks on Safari by using lookup. So we were restricting lookup, but as it turns out, if you restrict lookup, for some reason you can't use translate. Well, we have an extremely large emerging bilingual population. We need the translate feature. And so we spent a full day with a bunch of iPads trying to figure out how do we make this work while keeping kids safe from content that they shouldn't be accessing, especially since our iPad users are primarily pre-K through 6 and then some 7th and 8th. So eventually this is where blocking Wikipedia came up, because the main thing that they get when they use lookup is Wikipedia, and sometimes there are images that we aren't catching in our other filtering. So now Wikipedia is gone, and lookup is there because we want our kids to be able to translate. And so that was a really unique thing where we were addressing one challenge, but it created a restriction that we really didn't want and that didn't help our students. We also have, and although we're going to be able to fix this pretty soon once we can get all the adults on board, but we've had the challenge of keeping kids signed into their district managed IDs and to our managed Apple accounts. Our elementary kids, they don't touch it, they'll leave it alone. But we just moved 2 junior high campuses from Chromebooks to iPad, and they go home with them. This is not something our elementary kids do. So now this is a concern. So we have it set up to kind of get around that we couldn't control that. I know that control is available to us now, but we are a decade into bad habits, and I got to break the news to all the adults that they're going to be restricted to their managed Apple accounts now too. But anyway, so we have it so that they sign in and they see it there for a couple minutes, and as soon as it checks in, that's grayed out, and they are stuck in that Apple ID, because we had to find a way to get around that and make sure they're staying in our Richardson ISD Apple IDs.
Yeah, we had to do the same thing with our iPads, because ours do go home in 4th and 5th grade, and they supposedly bring them back to school charged, which I say supposedly because
we know.
These are very privileged children. They all have power. There's no excuse. But for some reason, they can't seem to plug the thing in. But all that to be...
Charge all their other devices.
I have heard that. My dad unplugged this because the Tesla needed charging or whatever, or I've heard it all. One of the best was I had a parent come to me. I'm parking cars in the parking lot because we're a small school, and at a school, we joke, we all do a little bit of everything. I'm parking cars, and this dad walks up to me. He's like, "Hey, I'm here to eat lunch with Brian. Do you mind if I get the Wi-Fi password?" I'm like, "Why do you need the Wi-Fi password?" And he's like, "My Tesla needs to run an update." And I was like, "Absolutely not. Have a good lunch." So, we all run into these weird, you can't make it up, what is going on? And that was the whole premise of where we came from. I called Morgan and I'm like, "Look, we've got to find a way to get us all together. We can share some of these weird stories and what we did," and that drove us here today. But we started locking our iPads when they go home only because the 4th grader has a 8th grade brother or sister, and they taught them how to do something, and they taught somebody else, and it all rolls downhill at some point. And we don't want to be responsible or held responsible for what happens after hours. And unfortunately, in the world we live, sometimes we are, more often than not, whether it's our fault or not, we're held responsible.
Does anybody have anything you want to add or share about these two questions, balancing those things. Yeah, got one here, then one over there.
You're talking about the kids causing problems, but in my district we have an administrative problem. They come in with an idea or something they used to do somewhere else. And it's my area, but I have a phrase that I use at work is, I'm not in the loop until it's around my neck. So I hear about things after.
Yeah.
And so they purchased this, I don't know if people have heard of 5-Star. It pretty much turns an iPad, a multi-$100 brand new iPad, into a bathroom pass. They bought 70 for all the rooms in the school. They all run this program so that the kids go over and if they're going to use the restroom or go to the wellness center, they sign in and it tracks their motions and invades their privacy too. It's all been in the paper already and it's not working well because they told me to lock it down. So it only runs that. So I put it in single app mode. And then the teacher needs to sign in using Google. Like, well, we need that on there too. And so put that on, get them, they sign in, so then I lock it down after they're all signed in, and then they get signed out somehow, and then they can't sign back in again. So I got to unlock them all so they can sign in, and then lock it. It's just,
Yeah.
I mean, to quote Shrek,
they don't.
the problem it's an onion, it has layers, right?
And we have in Formacast, we could get a different program with the company we already have, but they never even ran it by me.
Yeah.
They just do it.
Yeah, that's the tough part. I mean, and it took me probably a couple years to be able to get into those rooms prior to that stuff coming out, to get ahead of it, to say, whoa, wait a minute. If you're going to do this, let's do it this way. But just because the vetting of some of these things is not done, and sometimes not done well, and I'm very sorry your iPads are being used for hall passes.
Yeah, I feel like we have finally gotten to a good place with purchasing and approval. It's not perfect, but I mean, years. I've been in technology since 2017, so I'm saying that now.
Well, and we digress.
I have two kind of questions. The first one is around the Apple account restrictions. We actually did that in our organization, but what we're finding is students will get a prompt with it grayed out saying like update Apple ID settings or Apple account settings, like a red dot. And since you lock the settings, they can't tap it and log in. So now they're not in Apple Classroom anymore. So we've actually been exploring opening up that restriction to see if it benefits our Apple Classroom better. But wondering if you ran into that at all.
That is a great question, and that was my primary concern, and I'm going to look at our engineer who's sitting in the front, because this was my concern. If we gray that out, because I know I also get prompted because ours are federated and Duo and all that, but I get prompted to sign back in, and so that was my concern. So far, it hasn't really happened, but we're also hoping that we're going to be able to move to where we can use that control in ASM to enforce that, but again, I have to tell, and it's not even the teachers. The teachers are signed in because of Apple Classroom. It's like the central leadership that I'm going to have to tell them that you have to sign out of that. And like, I'll help you sign back into your messages and the App Store and whatever else you need. But this one's got to be this. So yes.
I found with teachers, if you just open the Photos app, if they're in their personal Apple account, that scares them out of wanting to use it.
Yes, yes, yes.
The other thing that I was thinking of is, so we get a lot of one-off requests for our districts where one dean will send one student and saying they're inappropriately using their camera. We need to lock their camera on their iPad. So we have a process of how we can do that by creating a smart group and just adding their user. But an issue we run into is we'll have someone request it, but then there's never follow-up to like track when that restriction should be lifted.
Yep.
Until the student is in another grade and the teacher says, well, why don't you have a camera? Your iPad's
Why can't they scan a QR code?
Right.
Yeah.
So we have like a ticketing system that we can kind of track this with, but I'm wondering if any other.
We really don't do any of those because of that.
Yeah.
I've got one little group of 16 fifth graders right now where I disabled Bluetooth. That was just like last Thursday because of something very specific. But otherwise, and I don't know what you use, but I push them back to, we have Jamf Teacher. If it's a problem, don't allow access to the camera during that time. But they need the camera for so many other things, and especially QR codes.
We leverage, when I'm in those conversations, I leverage you're denying a student an experience and denying their education. And if you say things like that, that typically will change the conversation as a whole. But what we do
also the digital citizenship.
Correct, that's a huge
that
piece of it.
They absolutely need to have.
But we have a meeting at the beginning of every year, and I will go over, these are the restrictions I have for this grade, these are the apps I have for this grade, whether it's a document or in person, and I'm like, I need to know now, before I redistribute these iPads, does this work? Does this still work? Do we need to move something? You know, and so that has helped, but we do not we'll make accommodations for an individual that are accessibility related, but if they are punishment related or behavioral, it's across the board.
Yeah.
Just quickly about the managed Apple IDs. I don't know if anyone from Jamf is in the room, but on their blog about iPad OS, Mac OS 26, they manage versus personal accounts, block unmanaged Apple IDs from use on school devices. So there should be a way coming up in 26 that'll allow you to just log in with managed Apple IDs only.
You can, and it's universal for everyone. And so that's where my challenge is, because I would like to go ahead and do that for students right now, and then prepare staff to make that change, but it's all or nothing.
Yeah.
So that's tough.
I have one more back there.
Nick, just north of Chicago in Evanston. I think our ongoing conversation is if we keep chasing restrictions and keep without the conversations, and so we've been on a slow uphill snowy climb of bringing it back to building admin and holding them accountable. They're having restrictions themselves on, no, you can't just go off and buy things for your school. And so we're having to redesign the entire system of approval, but that also goes to, okay, you're in Apple Classroom. Okay, your student's not doing something. Great, you lock them out. Okay, what's the conversation with your building admin and the parent?
Yeah.
Like, this has to be a holistic approach. Otherwise, if we keep putting on our ever-shrinking technology department to keep adding restrictions on, 6,600 devices of students, it's not manageable and scalable. And I can only imagine the 30,000. We just can't do that.
Well, not only
it's
can you
not
can't do it.
sustainable. I mean, I got a text yesterday morning, hey, can we push out a wallpaper for 6th grade at one of our 36 elementaries? And so, it's hard when they say, can we? Because I'm like, And so my answer was, we're not gonna do that. I said the whole building. If your principal says whole building, we'll do it for the whole building. She says, so you can't do that in Jamf? I said, we will only do that for the whole building. Like, I'm not gonna answer the can question.
Right.
But it's not sustainable to have these like small little things, but also my answer was, you have 6th graders, they're gonna go to junior high next year, they're gonna have a device with much less oversight that you have in elementary. It's gonna go home with them. This is a classroom conversation you need to have. We have an acceptable use policy. We have a contract. Why are you coming to me to push out a wallpaper when you need to have a conversation? And if it's that big of a problem, maybe we need to put them down for a minute and
Well,
do
if you
something
keep
else.
restricting the device, at what point, why do you have it?
Yeah.
Right.
That's the question, right? And that's
the
what it all comes
conversation,
down to. And I think that's where it's the holistic digital citizenship, be a good person, whatever it takes, but it's truly a group effort. And if you don't have teachers, administration, your support staff all on board, understanding that I have guardrails, but guardrails break. So you can't expect nothing to happen. Something's going to happen somewhere, because it will, but you have to understand we've put in parameters and we have tried, but I can't do it alone. And I think too many times something happens, and the first thing that happens from a
Shut it
teacher.
down for everyone.
Shut it down for everyone, or the email goes straight to the head of the IT department, and they're like, I can't believe you did this. And you're like, I don't know what happened, but okay.
Yeah. And we've been kind of the ace in the hole is we've got our ISD standards that my team follows. But even bigger than that is in the state of Illinois, the computer literacy standards have to be met. And so we've been holding that in our back pocket, but also leading forward. And that's great. You want to shut down the technology. However, they have to have these standards met in each of these grades, and they're mapped out by every single grade level and how it's going to happen, so we can have a stake in the game, because usually technology does not have a stake at the
Yes,
table.
we have this also. I'm so excited. We just got revised ones last year, and before that, they were very outdated. It was like saving to a disk. And they were in grade bands, and so it wasn't relevant, but last year they were revised. It's every grade level. They've got all these domains, and so yes, same thing. You know, we're able to say, if we make that change or they don't have access, they can't follow this, ours or TEACs, but they can't do that. They can't meet that standard.
One of the things that Morgan touched on was Jamf Teacher, and that's one thing I'd really encourage you to just explore. Don't push it out to all of your teachers right away. Explore it for yourself first. But that really empowers the educator in the classroom to set those restrictions, so you don't have to do it from like the district level. If I'm a
Turn off AirDrop.
turn off AirDrop, you can turn off your camera for your friends who don't really need it.
You can turn off using some of the like spelling and autocorrect.
Yep. So that's one tool that comes with both solutions, both Pro and School, that you have. You just have to turn them on. But I would encourage you to explore them first. If you have any questions, I will be down at the booth all day. And I probably don't want to talk about it tonight at the party, but I will be at the booth. I'm available anytime to chat about our apps. But that would be a great way to empower the educator to.
I'm happy to talk to anybody also. Sometimes you connect me with people. We turned that on 2 years ago, and it made a huge difference, because teachers can't be watching screens in Apple Classroom either. So just shifting that mindset, and it's not perfect, we're still doing it. I just talked to principals about this, trying to be proactive instead of reactive.
Yeah, and this is where it comes into just really getting that individual that is a little bit tech savvy, that can be, you know, your ringleader, your push the envelope. It's huge. I threw a couple of, this is my slide because I joked with Morgan that you didn't actually do a presentation at an event unless you have quotes. So I threw a couple quotes up for you. So this quote was actually given directly to me by an individual. It's kind of hard to see. Charles Snipes, he later got the School of Business at my alma mater named after him. And he said, if you're not changing, you're dying. He told this to me when I was 23 years old, and I thought he was a crazy old man. And the older I get, the more I realize how true it is. If we're not developing ourselves, if we're not trying to adapt, there's a problem. So that has always stuck with me. And the last one I thought was appropriate for anybody in tech is we all have a plan until we get punched in the mouth. Mike Tyson, but you know, like I said, we had to have a quote because it's a conference and everybody has a quote. So hopefully one of them will stick with you.
Thank you so much for interacting with us, because this would have been a really brief and boring presentation without you contributing and sharing your challenges and solutions and insights with us. Yes, please reach out or come chat with us.
Yeah, any questions? And if you spoke and you'd like a door prize, I have door prizes in the basket. Someone's already claimed the basket, so the door prizes have to leave.
Yes,
please.
I also would like to do some shameless self-promotion. I have a session again tomorrow morning that is Women in Technology, so please join me.
So are we invited?
I would love for you to be an ally.
So I'm invited?
Yes.
Oh, I'm invited.
Yes. Yes.
I need to be officially invited. Thank you so much. Enjoy your conference.
Thank you so much, Morgan and Brendan.